What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. I am one of your two hosts, Scott Leese, founder of Scott Leese Consulting and co-founder of the Surf and Sales Summit, here with my good friend and partner in the Surf and Sales Summit and Surf and Sales podcast, Richard Harris. What's going on, Richard?
It has been a minute, my man. I'm
Yeah.
doing well. I'm doing super well. And is it official? Do we have one slot left, or are we officially sold out, by the way?
No, we're sold out.
We are
We are
sold
we,
out
we
for
are
Surf and
sold out.
Sales.
We are
So let
sold
the
out officially.
let the FOMO begin. Of course, if our guest wanted to come, you could probably bunk in with Scott. He usually has
There's a hammock somewhere.
there's a hammock somewhere. But anyway, I'll turn it back over to you, my man.
Yeah, we're super grateful for everybody who's helping spread the word about the Surf and Sales Summit and has helped us sell it out for, I don't know, the 15th session in a row or something like
Something like
that.
that. Yeah, something
Something
like
like
that.
that. I can't even keep track of them all anymore. We're brought to you by a couple sponsors, one of whom I'll announce, and Richard will do the other one. I will talk about Tech Sales Accelerator, led by a friend of mine, Chris Bussing. Tech Sales Accelerator will help you launch your six-figure tech sales career without any prior experience or even a college degree. Check out techsalesaccelerator.com. And Richard, tell everybody
Yeah,
about our other
this one's
sponsor.
yeah, it's our friend Brennan Santos from Peel, which is a new AI tool that lets you meet your customers in their headspace, which is a big thing for me. I'm all about the humanity in sales, and so their AI enables companies to just meet their buyers on their terms, making cold outreach a whole lot be easier, a lot more scalable, with really better messaging, which I know a lot of people say, but I've seen what Peel's doing and it's impressive. It's a little different. It's something worth paying attention to, folks. So it's Peel, Peel .ai. So get Peel.ai. All right.
Get peeled. All
Introduce
right.
Get Peel. Let's
Yeah.
get to our guest though.
I'm super excited for our guest, Devon Hennig, to join us today. He's the CEO and founder of Boardroom Confidential. I've been talking about this guy's stuff for, I don't know, a month or two now, because I do a lot of work with VPs of sales and CROs and founders and compensation plans and all this stuff. And somebody the other day called me the defender of the VP of sales, but arguably Devon does the Lord's work here. So welcome to the show, Devon. We're excited to chat with you today.
What's good, guys? Great to finally meet you. Great to be here.
Yeah.
This is a tough show to get on, by the way, listeners. These guys told me like a long time ago, they're like, hey, you should come on the pod. Then they sent me their Calendly link, and it was like the soonest was 9 months away or something.
Only slightly hyperbolic. I think right now we're booked through February or something like that.
I mean,
But
it's easier to get Taylor Swift tickets than to get on Surf and Sales, but I'm happy to be here.
well, if only we could charge a fraction of what Taylor Swift could charge to be on the show. We could quit our day job. Richard, you're on mute. Richard, you're on mute. Richard, we
We'll
can't
just
hear you.
we will just try and capture 1% of the market. That's it. We just need
There you go.
1%, right?
There you go. By the way,
Of the-
Devon, what you just witnessed was a very important segment of our show where
Mhm.
Richard is consistently on mute, which
I've been good the last 18 months. That was the first time.
he has been good of late, but for the first 4 years of this show, it was like routine. It happens on every episode. So you have just experienced Richard being on mute. Tell everybody what Boardroom Confidential is.
That's all we have time for today, folks. Thank you
Yeah.
for checking out the Surf and Sales podcast.
He got real loud there. He leaned in. No, Richard,
Yeah.
we need like ASMR right now. We need
I don't
to.
even know what that is.
This is going to be compensation therapy. We're going to get in the listeners' earballs here.
Devon
And,
has an ASMR friendly voice, actually, and
He does.
Let me just point out one other thing. Richard is of the maturity level where he doesn't know what some of these things are. So if you heard him, he says, "Well, I don't know what ASMR is." So tell everybody about Boardroom Confidential real quick, so we have some context for our discussion today.
Sure. So, hey everybody, my name's Devon. As Scott said, he's been throwing me some bones on LinkedIn lately. Maybe you've seen me there, and he's been helping me promote my compensation playbook and executive community, and that's kind of what Boardroom Confidential is. It's a private network for executives at the director, VP, and CXO level, where we help out with comp and helping people become better operators. So that's about it. And the community piece is launching right away, so I'm sure we'll get to the plugs later.
I'm excited for you. I want to dig in straight away into all of this compensation stuff, which is
Mhm.
fraught with problems and challenges and misalignment, and it's almost like this red state, blue state kind of
Mhm.
feud
Mhm.
between the sales leadership and the VC or CRO,
Mhm.
or excuse me, CEO kind of world. So first of all, can you give us like the top two or three problems that you encounter, chief complaints from the CRO kind of side? What should people be looking
Yeah.
out for?
So I mean, like maybe, yeah, that's a good place to start. Just what's going on out there right now? Like
Yeah.
what is sort of this the state of the union? And 2024 has been rough. I think you've seen a lot of reports out there. Pavilion put out a good one that was talking about how, 2023 was terrible, layoffs, investments drying up, all that. 2024 sort of felt the aftershocks, and that whole leverage shifted back from candidates to employers. So you saw like OTEs plummet because the bonuses dried up, like quota attainment's been really hard, abysmal, and then, you know, um, really everything just was kind of trending toward lower packages. Which is, not entirely all macro. Some of it, I believe, is negotiation related and just like education, how to help people get the right thing. And we can talk about all those little pieces. But yeah, State of the Union is it's fucking rough. Can we swear? Let's bleep it. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
But
We don't bleep anything. We
Yeah.
swear
oh,
All
that's
up
right.
and
You guys
down
don't
the
do
stuff.
any editing. That's fine.
No.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty rough out there. But that's why I try and help a lot of people understand what I call like the what, how, why, like what pieces you should be looking out for, how to get those things, and then the mindset component, like why you should even be pushing for it.
Why try? How to
Hmm.
maybe a better way to phrase it in my mind is how to break free of learned helplessness, that
Mm.
some of this stuff is not in your control, that you're not allowed to ask for certain things, you're not allowed to push back, which in many cases I think comes from this mindset of being desperate,
Hmm.
needing the job so
Hmm.
much, right? And being afraid or unable to, go on much longer without one. And that causes you to overlook a bunch of things. You don't ask certain questions. You avoid, or not avoid, but you kind of avert your eyes to obvious red flags, that type of thing.
Yeah.
How do you help people get out of that kind of mode and into kind of negotiating from a
Hmm.
place of abundance?
Yeah, well, you're right. Like a lot of people think, why should I even negotiate? Why don't I just take the first offer? Like they don't want to seem greedy or they're worried it's gonna get pulled out from underneath them. And I think the reality, well, I know the reality is that the opposite is true. It's just incredibly rare, especially at more senior levels, that an offer is going to break down at the offer stage. So, you have to, in a lot of times, go through this mindset piece with people and say, look, realize you have the leverage. If it makes you feel better, go get multiple offers to get even more leverage. Surround yourself with people who can help and practice and, read things like, books on the mindset component. So it's a practice makes perfect thing.
What do you so you talk about something that I see all the time because I talk about it too, is that
Hmm.
once someone makes you an offer, it's rare that they're going to just pull it away from you
Yeah.
unless they're freezing all offers, right? Like that's
Hmm.
happened. I think we've all experienced that. But
Yeah.
let's just talk about that SDR or AE where they do need a job, they need to get their bills paid, they're not used or comfortable with this. Like you get to the executive level, you've
Hmm.
had a few more at bats at this. What advice do you give those kinds of people to maintain a certain level of confidence or
Hmm.
even teach them how to go back and ask for a little more?
Right. So it really doesn't matter kind of what level you're at, especially in sales. People are going to expect you to negotiate. At the higher levels, you're going to be able to get more and go harder, and you'll have more leverage. But essentially, it's a little bit of a red flag if a seller's not going to negotiate, isn't it?
Yes.
Don't you think?
I don't know if
So
I don't know if I fully agree with that.
go ahead.
Well, I actually hate negotiating.
Hmm.
I'm being honest. I really do. What I used to say to people is, I'm going to assume good faith. You're going to give me your best offer.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the things that I'm expecting or I want. And if you come in away from that, I'm out. I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
If you come in near that, well, you're going to make me think, and I'm going to have to consider all my other options. And if you come in above that, I'll stop talking to everybody else and I'll sign the dotted line today. Now, you could argue that is negotiation, Scott, right? And that's fair. I understand that. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't want to go back and forth, nickel and diming. Oh, I need 5K more. I need that. I can't, I don't have the energy for that. It's not like a Turkish flea market. I can't deal with it. Right. So I don't know. Richard, by contrast, loves negotiating. He loves that whole game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I agree.
So but I think what Scott described is the maturity level of negotiating salary, right? Where you've had experience, you've figured out this is how you like to do things, and you figured out after several different, jobs in the, can we say, the private sector, um, that's a best strategy, as opposed to someone who's never been taught that strategy, right? And I know you, Scott, that you I'm 99.9% sure that you figured that out on your own. I don't know that you read that approach, but
no, there was no Devon Hennig guidebook
yeah,
or group that I studied.
yeah.
It's just like me.
And so I
And I
think
don't
that's
know if it's the right way. I'm waiting for Devon to be like, Scott, you're an
Well,
idiot. You screwed yourself for 20 years.
I mean, back to this whole what, how, why thing. uh, a lot of the times, especially as people are going from individual contributor or rep into some sort of leadership position, it's just that they don't even realize what they can negotiate. Like they're used to talking about salary and some basic benefits and the commission piece, but as you get further up, no one teaches you about negotiating severance and provisions on your stock options and non-recourse loans and like all these crazy things the higher and higher up you get. So it's just that part that most leaders I talk to just aren't good at because they don't even know what's possible. But yeah, back to your like for reps and all that. I feel like a lot of the time it's just like, in any sales deal situation, like it's about objection handling. It's about having the right talk tracks and not, being able to ask for things without sounding like a douche. Like that's all the preparation, the work before the work that I think matters a lot of the time that people just aren't as good or practiced at.
I want to ask you, you brought up something I've never heard of. What was the loan phrase you used? You
Oh,
said
non-recourse loans.
yeah, what's that?
Yeah, so non-recourse loans are like where you basically get a company to loan you money to do different things. So they're like company funded loans that help you purchase stock options or cover your tax liabilities or support kind of other financial needs. And again, this is like executive level stuff most of
Yeah,
the
but that's why
time.
I'm asking, because I've never heard this one. So
Yeah.
Well,
um
you've probably heard of the company covering the cost of exercising stock options in
Yeah.
certain
right,
cases. I bet you've
right.
heard of that
Yeah.
aspect. Can we focus on stock options for a second?
Sure.
Give me two critical gotchas that are hidden in most people's stock option agreement that they should look out for and try to negotiate.
Sure. So stock options are usually like equity in general is the big elephant in the room. Most people, again, especially greener folks or younger ones in their career, like are super intimidated by them because they just don't know what to ask. They're not VCs, they're not founders, they're not dealing with this every day.
Yeah, they're not a
So
lawyer. Yeah.
not a lawyer, they can't, they just sort of sign on the dotted line and take what they're offered a lot of the time. But the most common thing is that people don't understand the value of them. They don't ask the question of like, what are the total shares outstanding? Like, what piece of this company am I going to get? And most of the time, the company just doesn't tell you that up front. They're just going to say, you're going to get this number of shares or this dollar value of shares. But to be able to do the napkin math and figure out what that might be worth in future scenarios, I mean, you really need to know what percent of the company you own. So that's not even really like a hidden thing. That's just a very basic thing that people don't typically ask for. Um, and that
But can you
actually,
explain? So let's say you get that information. How does that help you? right? I
Right.
find
So
out that I'm getting this.
yep.
These are the outstanding shares. Aside
Yep.
from, unless I'm like an executive level where I'm getting 1% or something like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
What's the value in knowing that knowledge other than you should just know it?
Yeah, so that lets you compare to benchmarks. Basically, all the benchmarks that I see out there are around like what percent ownership company you could have based on what seniority level you are. And this is more typical at like early stage companies. If you're early, like seed Series A, Series B, you're typically going to be negotiating for a percent of the company, whereas maybe later, down the road, public companies, you're negotiating for more of maybe a multiple of your salary on RSUs or something like that. But essentially, it's just for the benchmarks. It's to know, like, okay, is this comparable to what I should be expecting as an ownership position?
So where do you get the benchmark from? Is that something you have? Like
Yep.
go
Yep.
go to Devon's site, which is
Download that damn ebook. Get those
yeah.
charts. Yeah. Yeah, that's
No,
right.
seriously, tell them the website. Like I'm like people are
Yeah, so all this stuff's in my compensation
oh, he froze.
Oh,
Wasn't me.
well,
Wasn't me.
Bible. Called it the Bible because this is, what's that?
you froze
What's
for a
that?
second. You froze for a second.
Oh
We
no, am I
lost you.
back?
Yeah,
You're
Am I
you're
back.
back?
back. But we
Okay,
lost
we're
you for
back.
about 15 seconds there.
No,
Yeah.
not 15. Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said
Uh
all of this stuff is in my compensation Bible, and then we lost you.
oh dang. Mic drop on Bible. No, yeah, it's in this compensationbible.com thing, where you'll get the charts and the benchmarks and all that.
That's cool. Awesome. So I appreciate you diving into that. So how did you even get into this? How did you find this niche?
I
Right?
don't know. Somehow I've become this guy that like these people reach out to on compensation. And I think it started when I got screwed myself. This is like, the common story, right? Like the first startups I was at, I had no equity. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I left so much on the table. Got a little bit better at the next place, got a little bit better at the next place. And kind of all along the way, my I don't know, my method of dealing with stuff is to write it down. So I've been documenting this and eventually turned it into this PDF that I started, you know, um, sending around. And that was the beginning of it. Like I got screwed myself. So now I'm trying to help other people not get screwed.
I mean,
Or
it's
get
not. That's
screwed
not.
less?
It's not unlike a lot
The
of
rest of us.
founders. Well, it's not. Yeah. Well, that part's true too, but it's not unlike a lot of founder journeys, right?
Yeah.
You experience a problem or a challenge or whatever, and then you solve it for yourself, and then you
Mhm.
realize, well, shit, other people need this problem solved as well. You know,
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, do you guys remember your early comp packages? Like,
I do.
what were they? What did you
Yeah.
mess up? What did you learn along the way?
Oh my goodness. I uh, did not negotiate any equity
Mm-hmm.
at all one time. That was
Where
ridiculous.
was that? I don't even know that story. Where did you not do
I
that?
it wouldn't have mattered because it crashed and burned quickly.
Do I
That's the
know of
only.
the do I know
Yeah,
of this company?
yes, you worked there with me.
Okay, just making
Yeah,
sure. You
yeah,
didn't have the
yeah.
equity there?
Nobody did. Founder kept it all to themselves.
Oh,
That's
that's right.
actually
You're right.
that's
You're right.
actually
You're right.
was the beginning of the end of my time there. Was I learned about it, realized I'd gotten screwed, confronted them, and they weren't going to budge, and that was the beginning of the end. So
I
there was
remember that.
that. There was my second largest failure, actually probably my largest failure, my one shank on my resume. I just took the money. I got a higher base salary, promised a higher OTE, good equity comp plan, and I just saw dollar signs, and I didn't vet the founder. I didn't vet the,
Hmm.
opportunity or whatever, and I ended up with a blip on my on my resume. So that would be an example of negotiating really well to the detriment of yourself because it blinded me to all the other stuff that I should have been paying attention to because I was only focused on the money, which
Well,
I
in
think
that
is
first
problematic for
scenario,
people.
like where the founder kept all the equity, I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes that happens though, right? Where it's like a bootstrapped
Yeah.
startup or like
It was bootstrap startup. Yeah.
Totally.
the founders already had an exit, so they're not planning on like selling as far as the eye can see. Like equity doesn't
Yep.
even make sense in situations maybe like that. So that's where, again, like helping people understand there are other options. Like what about a milestone bonus plan that's
Yeah.
super compelling, or different forms of profit share. It can be still lucrative without
Yeah.
equity.
And I didn't know any of that stuff 20 years ago.
Hmm.
I was
Yeah.
on my own. I didn't know there wasn't all these resources, or if there was, I didn't know how to access them. I didn't know how to find them.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, the good news is, Scott, that really wasn't 20 years ago. It was more like 17 years ago. So you're not that
Oh,
old.
close enough. That's the good news. Great.
What about you,
3 years
Richard?
ago.
What are your mistakes? Let's hear what
Yeah,
were your
yeah.
first
Let's
compound
hear all the things you
actions?
screwed up.
Uh, I don't even think I knew that I could ask for these things at all, other than salary and vacation and bonus. Like I don't think I knew that piece. Um, I think that once I knew the equity, and then the first time I had real equity that mattered, I just took what they gave me because it was right after I'd started, after I'd finished working with Scott and gone through one other job. And then I got my first, as I call it, my first big boy SaaS role. And they gave me this equity and I'm like, sweet, this is great. Um, and I took it. And then there was an exit. What I didn't know upon the exit was that I could have probably negotiated for more of the equity I had because I was being let go through an acquisition and I didn't know about double triggers and those kind of
Hmm.
things. The math behind it was the compensation plan they gave me. I mean, sorry, the severance plan they gave me was equal to what I could have had I would have gotten in the options, but I didn't even know to try and ask for both.
Hmm.
Right. And so to a certain extent, I may have left some money on the table.
Did you negotiate the severance or just kind of take what they gave you?
No, I took it and it was from a fear factor place. But I also didn't know that they were being acquired. I
Hmm.
just thought I was getting let go. Like
Hmm.
so and I do, it's interesting because I remember in this letter, it said that I had a certain amount of time that if additional information came along, I could still come back to them. It was this weird phrase, which basically was them covering their butts to say,
Hmm.
if I wanted to come back, I probably could have asked for it, but I was not in a place where I understood what that meant. And then when it happened and I found out they were being acquired, I
Hmm.
got really bummed out and depressed about it, even though I had healthy severance and stuff. So it was just, there was a lot of emotion behind this stuff. Not only did I know
Hmm.
not what to do, I didn't know what to do. I also was just dealing with these emotions, which force you into that fear spot that Scott was talking about. Um, and then the next couple of places I went, equity wasn't totally a part of it in those places. I went to one place where it was hey, we're excited to have you. Why don't you write your own compensation plan? And that lasted about 8 weeks, and they decided they wanted somebody else, and they summarily let me go for no real reason. And then the next one didn't have equity, and then I started this business, and then I started learning about it. I'm like, oh, look at all these places.
Hmm.
Um, the other place, and I know I'm getting long winded, the last real job, I had started this business of consulting and I got seduced by a very good technology with the founder and uh and I didn't quite and I held hard to the equity that I wanted. I was like, no. And he was like trying to give me 0.1% in a director title. I'm like, fuck off, no. And like we went through hours of back and forth and I walked away like 3 times, which should have been my signal to just not come back the second or third time.
Hmm.
um and then that one blew up in my face, and then I went back to my consulting and I've never looked back. So I like many of us, I've learned from the school of hard knocks, and I've never been able to, because I've never wanted to go back to a real job, I've never been able to leverage this knowledge in a way that really benefits me at that super high level of a real compensation plan. So I'm always fascinated by this stuff. I have lessons learned, but I didn't actually get to do anything with it after that.
I think Devon's frozen again.
Yep. Yeah.
I
So,
I wonder if there's opportunity in what you do and what I do to coach founders on this stuff,
Why am I
Yeah,
frozen?
right?
you're
Oh, he's
good.
Hello,
back.
hello.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You,
Sorry, guys.
that's all right. We didn't hear what you said, but I was starting to ask Richard, like,
Mhm.
is there an opportunity to educate the founders on this stuff? Because I think, and I was just talking to
But they
my friend.
won't. They won't
Well,
do it.
but hold on for a second. You may or may not be right, but I was just talking to my friend Kyle Norton about this.
Hmm.
And this analogy that I had was, it is very red state, blue state. Like one person's evil, on each
Hmm.
side, one person's lazy on each side, or whatever. It's like we have to find a way to have a discourse where both parties can have a reasonable conversation with each other, and heads of sales, of CROs, or whatever, know what to ask for, know what they deserve and they're entitled to,
Hmm.
and founders relax some of the predatory behaviors that have historically occurred,
Hmm.
right? And they start to accept the fact that there's more knowledge out there, that people are negotiating differently, that they have more information, and they start to adjust and do things differently and acquiesce on some things. And we kind of meet in the middle, because I don't think either party really truly wants the other one to fail or be frustrated with each other.
Hmm.
So I was about to say to Richard, like, how can we also educate founders
Hmm.
on this compensation and negotiation stuff so it's less one-sided, where we're only helping one side? How do we, I would love to find a way to bridge the
Hmm.
gap.
It's a
That's a
good
question for
topic.
you.
I think that, like, there is a lot of short-term stinginess that leads to long-term pain. And I mean, comp plans are the ultimate aligner. If you can get everybody motivated with that, then you're going to be rowing in the same direction. It's just really hard because, anything cap table related is serious, is pretty permanent. And I think a lot of people get burned on this. Like, they have executive, like, hiring is guessing, right? Like, you don't know a lot of the time with people until you've worked with them a bit to, like, know if they are the right person or whatever. And taking the leap of faith with equity is tricky. And I've been on both sides of this coin now, where I used to be the executive at the companies and now I'm founder and trying to build the company. And that's why I think I'm more interested and motivated by some of these alternate structures, these milestone bonus plans, for
Because
example.
they
That
seem like a win-win for both parties, right?
exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's interesting because I know there's one thing that Devin, you need to go back and negotiate with your founder on, is how to negotiate a better internet connection and to keep freezing. So
I tried to
that's
be
a
in the garden and have a nice view for you guys. It's been
you,
terrible. I'm
you do
sorry.
have a
yeah,
great view.
you
You do
do.
have a great view.
So and he's in Canada right now, and it's like it's nicer in Canada than it is in Northern California right
Maybe they
now
don't
in
have Google
October.
Fiber in Canada.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So, but I have a question. So let's dive into what you just said around this lack of antagonism, right? Because if you think about it, if you go in hardcore negotiating salary, you're starting a relationship in a terrible way. You're trying to have this long-term successful relationship, and everybody's being stingy and greedy, sometimes by choice, sometimes by just lack of knowledge.
Hmm.
So talk about these milestone things. Like, what kind of things are you seeing that are new and different in the negotiation of salary and compensation these days?
Sure.
What are like
Um,
two or
so
three of them?
Yeah, I mean, milestone bonuses aren't necessarily new, but I think they are a little bit more in vogue these days, where they're essentially big bounties you put on big goals, right? The very first one I ever heard about was a friend, a CFO, who joined a startup that was, on its way to IPOing. And so the board told them, they're like, look, if you can help us go public, we'll give you we'll cut you $100K check. And that aligned with what they wanted. That aligned with what his role was going to be. And that made sense. So, I mean, it can be like that, where you're chasing some kind of objective. Alternately, I've seen a lot of them be more aligned to, like, just revenue targets or EBITDA targets or profit targets, where it's like for every 10 million in ARR that gets added, you get a percent of that. Or if we hit 100 mil, you'll get a percent of that kind of thing. And to Scott's point, it's just a win-win. Like, who wouldn't say yes to betting on yourself?
A more dramatic milestone bonus that I kick myself for not negotiating is I was always the early stage VP of sales guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Richard, I used to tell people like, listen, it's going to take me 2.5, 3 years. I'm going to get you to 25 million. And then I'm probably fucking out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Right. My failure was, and partially my failure, yes, ultimately, but also predatory behavior of founders and VCs. If I do my job, which my job is to get you to 25 million, why do I have to stay there a fourth year in order to vest the final 25% of my equity? I should have negotiated, if I get you to 25 million, or when I get you to 25 million under this amount of time, you should automatically vest all the rest of my equity. Because otherwise, like, I'm disincentivized in a way. I should have got to 25 million ARR in 4 years. I would have vested all my equity. I got there faster.
Yep.
And when I left, I lost 25% of the equity from my grant. That's ridiculous. Yep. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Right. So that is a milestone bonus that I think should become much more commonplace, especially for people who are, early stage type folks. You run the risk of getting topped off at some point in time. It's just like, okay, listen, if I get you from here to here, I deserve X. Right? That I wish I would have negotiated that.
Well, I love two things about that. Number one, just how you position yourself in the process, like in the whole interview process. You are the 0 to 25 million guy. Like, that is crystal clear. That's probably what you're telling everyone you meet along the way. It's like just solidifying in their head, this is the guy we need, rather than the people who give fluffy answers who you're, also interviewing. So I love that you position yourself like that. And then aligning that positioning with the comp is that what you just explained should be a no-brainer for them to say, okay, if we hit that milestone, then great, that triggers the acceleration.
And shame on me for not thinking of it while I was in the trenches. But also
I don't think you would have. I don't know that you'd have gotten away with it though.
That's what I was about to say. Is this is going back almost 9 years now, and the behavior and attitudes of founders from back then and the prior 15 years or so before that, I don't think they were as open to this stuff, if they were open to it at all. But there's a shift now, though. But there is a little bit of a shift now that is occurring where people are being more open to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive positive for everybody.
I remember
sorry.
I was just gonna say, I remember we had Mark Roberge on the podcast years ago, and we asked him this question. Like, this is when we first started, maybe season 1 or 2. And we were like, why is it a 4-year vest? And he literally said, nobody's asked me that question ever. It's a great question, and I don't know. Like, that's when we realized what a copycat league we were in, right? And when a guy like that didn't know, right? It was very eye-opening. And I was saying this years ago. I remember at my last real job when I was negotiating employees coming in. I went to my management and I said, what if we offered to literally write the check if a rep hits a number to their student loan? And this is in 2012, 2011. Like, let's pay off $5,000 of a kid's student loan, right? Which is in some ways even better than a bonus, maybe. I don't know. If I'm 23, I might want the $5,000 my own, and I'll spend it.
It's more responsible,
right? But I, my point for that was like, back when we all believed that companies were family, it's like, well, if this is family, mom and dad help pay off that loan every now and then. Mom and dad help with the down payment of a house. Mom and dad do those things, and like the level of loyalty, I think you would have gotten. And now I'm seeing it. I'm literally seeing that this is what people are finally offering. I'm like, where have you guys been for 12 years? So I interrupted you, Devon. Sorry.
No, it's a cool idea. I think, there are positive shifts. In fact, in that Pavilion report we talked about before, one of them was that there are longer exercise windows now. That has been increasing steadily. I know a lot of leaders have been pushing for that and to make that the norm. And I think it was something like over half of the people, like over 50% of go-to-market executives at least now have a
Yeah.
2-year window or more.
Can you explain what that is? Again, like, we're talking to people, the three of us know what you're talking
Sure.
about. There are some people who like, what do you mean an exercise window? What's that?
Yeah, so the amount of time you have to exercise your vested options, right? Especially in a scenario when you're leaving the company. Typically, they only give you like a 90 days to take it or leave it. But the idea is like, why? You earned that. You've
Yeah.
been there.
Why?
You've put in your hours. You've done the work. You've, did your job. That should be yours for a longer period of time to decide, right? So,
And by the way, if you're a senior executive, that shit's expensive.
mhm.
Yeah.
How many people have hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially of cash lying around
Yeah.
to actually exercise?
Not to mention, it keeps you loyal. It also keeps you loyal to, like, well, sure, if you give me another 2 years, I'm going to try to remember to send people to you because I want to be able to, the company to be successful. So I can do those things, right? So it's a good win-win, in my opinion.
2 years being the new norm is a massive win, I think, for everybody. You talk about 90 days. I had 30 days.
I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah.
30 days to decide or come up with the money. Yeah.
Oh, I did that with my first job, and that share certificate is still collecting dust in my basement. I mean, like, I who knows when that's going to turn into anything, but like it was pressure. It was absolutely pressure to put the money up.
Yep. Yeah. And then the tax implication. So
yes,
it's even
that's even trickier too if it's going from an ISO to an NSO, and that's different podcast.
So there's a lot of people probably sitting here thinking to themselves, all this stuff is great, all those negotiation tips, whatever, but I'm not a C-level person yet. I'm not a CRO. I'm not a VP of sales. I'm not a VP of marketing or whatever. What would you say to people who are earlier in their career? How can they apply some of these tips and tricks to their own negotiations that are not overreaching? If I'm an SDR, I shouldn't be asking for a $100,000 family relocation package.
Yeah.
Right? So how can we think about helping them and where they're at in their journey?
So when people ask me this, I actually give them your answer. I don't know if you remember this from a long time ago, or if you tell this.
I don't know.
Still,
I don't know if I remember. Go for it.
But I like this. So you said once upon a time, when you're young, optimize for cash and experiences, because those are the things that are going to be, helpful in growing your career. You want to get wins, you want to get notches in your belt that you can then translate into leverage for more equity and wealth over time, right? So, on the flip side of that, if you are an older VP, you're probably looking for more of the fuck you money and something that's going to change the game for your family and all that. But when you're, beginning in your career, whether you're young or you're transitioning to a different career later, I mean, you got to get the wins. You got to get established first. Does that still ring true? Is that something?
Oh yeah, it still rings true.
That
same
totally.
Advice I say today. Yeah.
Yeah. I that was the mistake I made, is that early in my career, it wasn't even about fuck you money. It was just about fuck you. Like, fuck you, give me this. Right. And I say that, and I would be, I'm willing to bet I probably actually said it out loud at one point somewhere along the way. Like, fuck you, I'm not taking that salary. That's ridiculous. Like, it's terrible. So
we got to move towards the end of the show. We're getting towards the end of the hour here. Want to shout out one more time our sponsors. I'll talk about Tech Sales Accelerator. Tech Sales Accelerator is a collection of courses that deliver a complete blueprint for landing an entry-level sales role at tech companies you love, getting your first promotion, and becoming a consistent six-figure earner. Check it out at techsalesaccelerator.com. And Richard, tell everybody about Peel.
Yep. Yeah. So Peel is really merging the sales and marketing alignment, as we've been talking about getting aligned on a lot of things today. As buyers avoid sellers, right? 70% of buyers just prefer to try and talk to a chatbot before they even talk to a human. So how are you going to align that mindset? How are you going to figure that out and then make sure that the messages you are sending are getting through and or being supportive to it, where that buyer is in the headspace? So that is what getpeel.ai can help you do. Be sure to check out our friends Get Peel and hit up Brandon Santos on LinkedIn. Tell him you heard about him on the Surf Sales podcast. He's actually going to come on soon. I gotta work on that date. Hopefully it'll be before February though. So
I doubt that. It'll probably be during spring break.
probably. So and then Scott will reschedule him.
You're a busy man. Yeah, I'll
Scott will
reschedule.
Right.
Yeah. That's what will happen. All right, we're at that part of the show, Devon, where we flip it over to our guests, you in this case, and say, do you have any questions for us? How can we be helpful to you?
I got questions. Yeah, I got questions. So we're talking negotiation. I love hearing from people. What are your special little negotiation moves or one-liners? Like, everyone's got maybe something they whip out from time to time. Like, what are your tricks? I'm just fascinated by these.
Well, I'll let you go first, Richard, because you love this stuff so much.
So part of my negotiation thoughts are, well, what are the things I really don't give a shit about? Right. And so I'll ask for a lot of little things. I would ask for cell phone reimbursement. Look, you're telling me I got to use my own cell phone, then you got to pay for that. Right. I'll negotiate ahead of time an extra week of vacation. I don't want 2 weeks. I want 3 weeks. I will ask for, commuter benefits, which a lot of people now give as a standard. I'll ask for gym memberships. I'll ask for additional support on my healthcare costs because I have a family. It's ridiculous. Knowing that I'm probably not going to get many of those, but I'll give them up in the mindset of my counterpart in order to get more equity or salary or both. So for me, it's like having some throwaways that I can use to leverage, knowing if I don't get them, that's okay. And the irony of it is, a lot of the times you get those little things and you still get what you want. And I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier, is like, I think people would be shocked if we didn't try to negotiate a bunch of stuff. Right. So I think that is one of my little sort of things that I encourage and suggest to people is ask for a lot of little things in addition to what you want. Right. And see where that lands you, because it gives you more of a conversation piece to talk about it at a high level rather than just these one or two financial pieces. Right. And it makes that conversation slightly more comfortable, in my opinion, because they're saying, well, we can't do this and we can't do that and we can't do this. All of a sudden they've told you no on all these little things, but they're going to have to give you something at the end. So those are the ways I look at it.
I'm going to answer the question in perhaps a slightly different way than you intended. You can let me know. But we touched on trying to not come at negotiations from a place of weakness or desperation, and rather come at it from a place of abundance, right? The first tip that I tell everybody is do not get locked into and fall in love with whatever company you're interviewing with and try to lock in and like, I really want to work at devon.com. I don't do that. I tell people straight up, you need to collect paper. And I don't mean cash. I mean like papered offers. Right? And I talked about this so much that a friend of mine made a hat for me and sent it to me. It says collect paper. Shout out to Alexine. You need to have multiple opportunities. So if I'm negotiating, I don't want to negotiate against one person. I want to negotiate against 10 people. I want to have 10 different offers out there, right? And I can end up pitting people against each other, so to speak, and operate from this place of abundance. So that's the first thing. Mm-hmm. The second thing I negotiate is I don't take a sales leadership role unless my first hire is defined and set in stone by a particular milestone or date, and it's a head of RevOps. Because I don't want to do all the stage building, report building. I don't want to get involved in HubSpot and Salesforce and tooling and process. I know what I want. I just don't want to be the one building it, because I need to be coaching reps. I need to be closing deals. I need to be prospecting. I need to be in strategy. I shouldn't be doing ops related stuff. So that being negotiated as my first hire and it comes along with me, that's like non-starter for me. And coincidentally, the first 3 roles of VP sales jobs that I had, I did not do that. And the second 3 were all 9-figure plus home runs, including a unicorn. And the first 3, there was only 1 that had a positive outcome. So draw your own conclusions from that. I know what I draw from that. The last thing that I negotiate is the OTE. And what I mean by the OTE is it real? I don't care about an OTE that says $9 billion OTE. I want to negotiate with them. How are our goals, revenue goals, set and defined? Meaning, you're not just going to hand me a goal and I'm going to say yes. I'm not inheriting the previous VPs of sales goals. I'm not inheriting the numbers that you told the board because you were, trying to raise a bunch of money. So the way I negotiate the OTE is, how are we coming up with these goals? I need to be able to see the path and understand the math that makes that OTE attainable. Otherwise, that OTE number is meaningless to me. So those 3 things are what came to mind for me, rather than like, hey, here's a trick to get 5K more in base salary. So nice. It might not be in the direction that you were hoping for, but that's where I went.
No, that's even better. I mean, I was looking for little tips and one-liners. You gave me a whole framework, so I'll take that. I like the second one. I like the RevOps piece. Like, negotiating headcount for hires or senior hires is something almost no one does. But if that's your Batman and that's your Robin, like,
that's right.
Get it.
Yeah. Well, we appreciate you so much, man. Thanks for spending some time with us. You got a lot of good content, a lot of good information. I encourage everybody to check out Devon Hennig and Boardroom Confidential. And he's building a community and coaching people up. He's starting to produce a lot of good content on LinkedIn because I've been yelling at him to do so. Devon, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you, or what's a parting shot that you want everybody to hear?
Sure. So boardroomconfidential.com for all that stuff. I'm surprisingly more active on TikTok than LinkedIn. We could spend a whole other episode talking about how shitty I think LinkedIn is. But go see me do dances on. No, I'm not fucking dancing on TikTok. Go.
We'll have to have Devon back and go a whole other direction.
That was my next question. If we had time, was what do you think of LinkedIn? Because it is just, we could talk about that, but next time.
I don't know if we have enough time and space for that.
Yeah, we might have to move into a time-space continuum to get through that entire topic.
Is this being recorded? I don't know. They might have eyes, and they might be big brothering us. They might have eyes and ears somewhere. And
you're going to notice your reach go down after this.
That's my algorithm suddenly tanked somehow.
I can't suck worse than mine did yesterday. So.
All right, everybody. We appreciate you listening and spending some time with us. Thanks again for supporting the Surf and Sales Summit and the Surf and Sales Podcast. We will see you all next time.
Bye, everybody. Thanks, David.